Hi, welcome. So this is the second video in the series. So immediately following that sort of brain dump that I did earlier in Excalidraw, starting to explore what my next steps are, figuring out what technologies do I want to use for this, what and how would I think about building this project. So to start, I use ChatGPT and kind of give it a big prompt of what I'm trying to accomplish, the technologies I'm trying to use, and get into what that and kind of see what that provides. I've had mixed results with ChatGPT. Something like this, I didn't have super high hopes for anything too specific. Um, I find that for reworking functions and chunks of code, it's very useful for kind of like optimizing certain things. When I ask too much of it, it seems to get overwhelmed and give me misguided information that then I go down a rabbit hole trying to explore. So at this time, the mindset is very much this is just an exploration, trying to understand what I don't know and figure out kind of like how would a senior software engineer think about breaking down this type of problem that I'm trying to accomplish. So yeah, I give it kind of a basic idea of what I'm trying to accomplish, the different kind of scoring rubric that I'm trying to use, and give it some dummy information to use as a structure and to see what it pops out. Um, so as you see, yeah, building through all this stuff I already talked about, pumping that information in, trying to tell it that I want to use Firebase authentication, trying to give it the dummy information. So at the time, yeah, I want to get Firebase as the I know it has the database functionality and the authentication. So that was the first thing in my mind of that's what the user starts with, then that's what I should start with as well. I start with Vite just because I know Vite and React, it's fast, everyone seems to love it. So this is my first kind of exploration to trying to, I guess, initialize a React project. This is I was young and naive, thinking that it would all just work easily. Um, so we start getting to this. I follow the ChatGPT instructions, um, and I start to like hit some roadblocks. Some weird things kind of happen. It's not working the way I had expected it to. So I'm exploring and trying to understand like why is it not working? Why is it not kind of like doing what I'm expecting it to do? And I then, upon further research, realized that Vite and Firebase don't super get along. At least a few months ago, when the research I was doing, it seems like there's like some experimental stuff you need to turn on. You start getting into like emulators and stuff that's kind of outside of my familiarity, and the fact that I haven't really heard this term thrown around very much, just in like listening to podcasts and watching other videos. It felt um, unnecessarily cumbersome. So start exploring and kind of hitting these like roadblocks and trying to understand how to get the projects connected. Um, Realizing that okay, using V and getting Firebase hooked up, like there's some funkiness there. And this is when I start to realize that not all libraries really play nicely with each other. So I spend a while trying to just like watch these videos and understand what it's doing and again understanding this is all exploratory for me. This is trying to understand what I don't know, figure out what the jargon is, what are like terms that keep popping up, what are things that I should be mindful of. Um, so this is my exploration. I had to install Java for something and like all these kind of like weird sections that I hadn't really thought I was going to need to go. But again, this is all exploratory, just trying to figure out what I'm doing. Um, so we can jump ahead here. And again, going back to ChatGPT, seeing the information that it holds and realizing like, okay, that avenue that I went down with Vite and Firebase feels wrong. It feels harder than it needs to be. So, okay, let's find a tutorial that kind of just does the bare bones. I'm trying to use React. I'm trying to use Firebase. Fireship makes great tutorials. It's less than 9 minutes. It's crazy. So I decided to then use the tutorial, build along with it, and understand more about React, more about Firebase, and get a better understanding of how those two things connect. How do you pass information between the two of them? There's my dog barking. Um, so this is my first real foray into a more interactive React project. At this point, my portfolio was built with React, but again, I followed a tutorial, and that's basically a static website, which looking back, the more I've learned, I probably didn't need to use React for it, and I should have used something else. But it's built and it looks nice, so I think that's good. So this is my first foray into this React, into uh, more interactive. So understanding like using state to understand whether a user signed in or not, how to get different components to display depending on what the state is, um, and then understanding, okay, the the different, like, this is a chat app, so you've got like your messages and someone else's messages, comparing using the user ID to understand, is it your message or someone else's. um, this was great as a great entry point, to really understand, again, like, yeah, how information's passed around, how do you display different things depending on what you're looking for. um, and it was great. It definitely was very fast, very bare bones. This was a tutorial where I wasn't sure how much best practices were being followed, because it's all done just within the app .js file for the most part. Um, Again, it was super fast. So that was one of the things that I wasn't sure about. I was happy to get all that information, but then for structuring my own project, understanding when components should be in their own file, and then when you can you have multiple components within one file. That was something I was still unsure about after that tutorial that I wanted to learn more about. So after that, go back to ChatGPT and basically use the information that it dumped out and see kind of how close is it to what I'm looking for. So basically, I start my project, use the beginning stages of setting up authentication based on that tutorial that I followed, and trying to at least start to now build the components that I want to display on screen. So that's where we start with there, and just this is again very exploratory, trying to figure out what I don't know, what kind of warnings are going to pop up, what do they mean. This was, I was curious, like, how close is ChatGPT? Not very close. I definitely probably could have spent more time crafting my prompts to get more feedback out of it. But again, that's not super useful at this point. I find ChatGPT is good for optimizing things or things that I already know, where uh, it's not great for kind of generating content that I'm not familiar with, where I'm just copy and pasting everything and I'm not really learning as I go. That's not how I like to use it. If it's making something faster and easier, great. If it's generating something I don't understand, then not super useful. Anyway, so at the end of this video here, starting to get into, okay, I've explored React a little bit and these different frameworks. I've gotten Firebase to be able to authenticate a little bit and understanding what kind of passes the information back and forth and how's that connection made. The next thing I wanted to learn more about is TypeScript. So understanding the basic fundamentals. At this point, I've only really heard about TypeScript and like a vague understanding of what types are. I mean, I know what types are, but how they relate to your code, and how you kind of declare them, that kind of information. So this was a video I found a while ago, just sort of like getting into the basics and of understanding kind of like, yeah, what is the least amount of information you need to know to get started. So that's something that's on my mind, but at this point, I had explored React a bunch. I had hit my head up against all those weird error messages, and I built the tutorial, so I felt good about that. So having done that exploration, I wanted to then jump into the next topic that was on my mind, which was the actual data structure of the tasks that I had started with that initial brain dump. And then also, what are the functions and calculations that are going to be done to figure out how to present the tasks in their like priority order, top, most important, least important. So that's when I go just back to regular JavaScript, because that's what I know. It's familiar. I can build things to my heart's content. So that's kind of what the next video is I jump into that and start exploring the data structures. So tune in next time. Thanks.